had a lovely entry to the 80s. 1980 gave us Pac-Man, the Rubik's Cube, Jake LaMotta, and Devo? We also saw the passing of some of our all-time legends, such as John Lennon, Alfred Hitchcock, and Mario Bava. And we also got a lot of great horror films, so let's get into my personal top 10 horror movies of the year 1980. And just as a disclaimer, this list is made purely by me, so of course the list will be affected by my personal taste. I'm sure a lot will disagree with it, some might agree, but hopefully someone will see a film or two here that they have not checked out yet. So here we go. First up is The House on the Edge of the Park. This is the first out of 4 Italian horror films on this list. It is very sleazy and has this dirty early 80s atmosphere in it. There is one particularly nasty scene in it where a young girl, played by the adorable Brigitte Petronio, is being sliced open, and it's just a grueling scene to sit through that you won't forget very quickly. It is directed by the great Ruggero Deodato, which you will see again later on this video with another nasty shocker. The bad guys here are played by genre legends David Hess and Giovanni Lombardo Radice, and I dare you to find a better duo for a film like this than these two guys. You will see Radice in 2 more movies on this list, so 1980 was a great year for the kind and always awesome Italian actor. Now this film feels like a mixture between The Last House on the Left and The New York Ripper, and even though it hardly makes any sense story-wise, it still just works for me, and I will absolutely recommend it to any fans of the Italian horror films of that time period. At number 9, we have another Italian horror film, this time by the late Antonio Margheriti, who has also done movies such as Killerfish and 7 Deaths in the Cat's Eye. Cannibal Apocalypse stars the great John Saxon and once again Giovanni Lombardo Radice, who is just popping up everywhere on this list. Now this is a different type of Italian cannibal film, as it in fact does not take place in an Amazon jungle, but is rather set in a big city. The film offers great gore, good acting, some political commentaries, and it has been called the Apocalypse Now of the cannibal genre for a good reason. Far from perfect, but absolutely a film that more people should check out. Coming in a bit lower than what most people would have expected, we have John Carpenter's The Fog at number 8. Now I'm sure that more people will put this further up, but even though as a Carpenter fan, I never really fallen in love with The Fog. It is a good film though, as it has some great visuals, an awesome cast with Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, Janet Leigh, Tom Atkins, and more. It does fall a bit short on some of the horror elements, and it is one of the few Carpenter films that actually feels a bit dated to me. And that's why it fails to climb even further up on this list for me. At number 7 we got The Boogeyman by Ulli Lomel. This is an underrated supernatural slasher that worked for me back when I was a kid, and it still managed to work for me today. It's like a mixture of Amityville horror and Halloween with a little bit of The Exorcist thrown in for good fun. I would never say that Lomel is a great director, but his work with the camera here and the creation of atmosphere is quite good. So I forgive him on, well, everything else. Perhaps it's not a film that is going to be found on plenty of others' top 10 lists of the year, but I dig it. And hey, it's got the great John Carradine in it. So give The Boogeyman, or The Boogeyman, a second chance. Now, nothing can be said about the Friday the 13th that hasn't been said a million times before. The entire franchise is iconic, legendary, and will forever be in the hearts of horror fans worldwide. Now that being said, as a standalone movie, the first one is not perfect, and I would argue that it is perhaps not even the best of the Friday the 13th. It is however a great American giallo-inspired film that influenced the genre for years to come, and was just as responsible for the slasher boom of the early 80s as Halloween was. Rientretto in Italia. Lucio Fulci was on a roll in the early 80s. Zombie Flesh Eaters, yeah, it's from 79, but come on. Contraband, The Beyond, The House by the Cemetery, New York Ripper, and I'm ignoring the black cat on purpose here. In the middle of all of that, he delivered City of the Living Dead. Now this is pure nightmare put on film. It got so much over-the-top gore, nightmare's dark atmosphere, and a story that doesn't even try to make much sense, which nightmares rarely do anyway. Add a fantastic score by Fabio Frizzi, and you end up with one of the absolute best films this legendary director has graced us with. Oh, and for the third time on this list already, Giovanni Lombardo Radice shows up, this time with the honor of having his head drilled open. Now that's what I call being mindfucked. I should note that this and the two next films could change place on this list depending on my mood, as they are all excellent movies. But as of today, we have the demented mind of Frank Zito coming in at number 4. Zito is a maniac roaming the gritty streets of New York, killing off every innocent person that he feels the need to punish. There was a lot of nasty serial killer films being made in this era, but I'd say that Maniac somehow managed to set itself apart, and it's one of my absolute favorites. The direction of William Lustig is top notch, Joe Spinell absolutely steals the show, as always, in the role as Frank Zito, Caroline Munro is as lovely as ever, and the special effects by Tom Savini has perhaps never looked better. And it is actually one of the very few horror films that can actually brag about having a good remake made after it. So if you're into movies such as Psycho, Don't Go in the House, or hell, even Pieces, then Maniac is an essential movie for you to watch. As much as I like the Stephen King book, I have to disagree with King regarding Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece of a movie. The Shining is a superb film that works just as well today as it did back in 1980. Out of all the movies on this list, this is the most essential view for every horror fan. And I say that because this is a film that I don't think anyone, except Stephen King, will dislike. It's still scary, creepy, and everything you can want from a haunted house or hotel movie. While most fans will say that either Suspiria or Deep Red is Dario Argento's absolute masterpiece, I'd say that Inferno deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as those two. Inferno feels like a natural progression from Suspiria. It is absolutely gorgeous and a reason alone to buy a Blu-ray player. There is some breathtaking scenes in it, courtesy of a master at his creative peak. I do not know why this isn't held in a higher regard, but for me this is an absolute pleasure to watch, and I hope that I will someday be able to see it on the big screen, as I've been fortunate enough to do with Suspiria. So here we are at number 1 already, and the Italians are really shining on this list. Ruggero Deodato's Cannibal Holocaust is one of the most shocking and powerful films I've ever seen. There's few films that have crept under my skin and stayed with me like this movie has. It doesn't matter how many times I see it, it still feels as powerful as the first time I saw it. I was lucky enough to see it at a film festival in Denmark in 2014 with Deodato himself in attendance, and seeing this masterpiece on the big screen just amped up everything 10 times more. It is a movie that you will not be able to forget as it sits with you for the rest of your life. It's pure, intense horror, and it deserves to be crowned the best horror film of 1980. So what did you think of the list? Any movies that I left out that should have been on it? What's your top 10 list of this excellent year of horror? Let me know in the comment section below, and look out for a top 10 list of 1981 coming very soon.